Okay, mystery fans, we are going to stream over to Facebook now, and there'll be that delay that we always have before we hang out with our mystery friends and fam over on a Mighty Blaze. All right, and it looks like we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery friends. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm thrilled to have with me today Paul Vidich, whose brand new book, The Mercenary, is out now. Paul, welcome. Tell us about your book.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. It's nice that we're doing this today because today is the publication date for the book. So it is officially out, and having written it, I guess probably finished it 9 or 10 months ago. It's a delight to be able to see it birth into the world. It's a little bit like a child in a way. The book itself is set in Moscow in 1985. So it's a Cold War spy novel. And the book is a book that for me was in some ways a very special book because there are echoes of John le Carré in it. And John le Carré, who recently died, is an author I've read and respected my entire life. And it was only after he died that I looked back at the book, which I had written a while ago, and I saw that the main character in this book, his first name is Alex. And the name of the character in A Spy Who Came In From the Cold is also named Alex. And it was a very unconscious echo, but it certainly is an echo. And I owe a great debt to John le Carré for his work in the spy novel fiction.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I can't wait to hear all about it and dive in with you. I just want to pause and welcome all of our friends on Facebook. Hi, Gail. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Virginia. Hi. We have two Gails. Hi, Gails. Hi, everybody. Welcome. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, here's the drill. You get access to our featured author, Paul Vidich, today, an acclaimed espionage novelist. And his book, The Mercenary, is a 2021 most anticipated book by Crime Reads. Wow. I'm going to share the many words of praise that this book has earned. But if you have any questions for Paul about this book, about his research in Russia, I know I want to know all the things. Just go ahead and type them in the comments, and my partner in crime, pun intended, Margaret Pinard, will be monitoring things over there, and she'll get the questions right over to us. So start firing up your questions for Paul while I just pause and hop over here and share some of the incredible praise that this book has earned. Booklist says, evoking without imitating classic Le Carré, Vidich supplements the world weariness we expect from Cold Warriors in a game too long by giving Garin a satisfyingly contrarian contempt for agency puppeteers. I love that. The Wall Street Journal has praised your writing, saying that you write a terse and convincing thriller. Vidich proved his talent for noirish spy fiction in 2 earlier books. This standalone work reaches a new level of moral complexity and brings into stark relief the often contradictory nature of spycraft. I have a lot more that I want to share, but let's pause and talk about these 2 reviews. So as I was reading this book, the words terse and sparse and really cutting, incisive, cold came to mind. Tell us about your intention for writing this book and some of your research.
Let me start with the research. Typically, I will research a book for anywhere from 6 to 9 months before I begin writing. And even though I may know some of the characters because they may be a recurring character, typically I go to a city and I try and embrace the city. And I also go back to a point in time in history and often work around an incident, which is a factual incident. So I spend a lot of time researching the incident and trying to develop a sense of the atmosphere of a city. So in some cases, I travel to the city and I do the equivalent of basically location scouting. I look where the spy or the embassy is, and I try and walk the route that they walked. All with the idea that to become convincing to a reader, it has to feel authentic. And the authenticity comes through the little details that the reader reads over, but which are important in order to sort of create the sense that this imaginary world is real. So in this case, I did a lot of reading of biographies and autobiographies of KGB defectors and moles or CIA handlers, because it was in understanding who they were, the sort of their psychological makeup, that I was able to create the characters in this book, the spies in the book, the Russians particularly. And then there was another thing about this that was a little unique in that I was writing it during the pandemic or part of the pandemic. And usually, as I said, I would go to a city, but in this case, I couldn't travel to Moscow. And I'd never been to Moscow. So I had the challenge of trying to write about a city I'd never visited. And I turned to Google Maps. And if you've been on Google Maps, you know they have Street View. Street View allows you to walk down the streets and pretend as if you're in the city. You can see the street signs, you can see the people on the streets, you can see the color of the homes, you can see the architecture. And I was able to walk the streets in the novel that exist in Moscow. And that I found actually to be, in some ways, a better way of getting to the Moscow I wanted to depict. Because the Moscow I'm depicting is 1985. If I go to Moscow today, it really, in some ways, is not that same place. It's a different city. So I could remove myself from the immediacy of going to a city today by going backwards and looking at the things that I needed to look at. When I started this, I was a little uncomfortable with the idea that I could pull it off, but the people who've read the book, who were in Moscow in 1985, say they're convinced by it. So I feel like I pulled it off.
Yay! Oh, wonderful. Margaret saying congratulations and happy pub day. Virginia saying congratulations. Paul Gale saying hi, Sarah, Paul, and a mighty blaze. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Let us know what questions you have for Paul. Paul, I have a question. Do you speak Russian?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I use Russian in the book, and I picked it up from other books. And then one of the people who read the book before it came out and was sort of a test of the accuracy and authenticity of it, and the Russian, was a guy named John Barely, who was the first ambassador, American ambassador to the Russian Federation, who is fluent in Russian. So he read it, he corrected a number of things that were important. But he had also been in Russia in 1985. And he loved the book, and that gave me the confidence that, you know, I was able to inhabit this imaginary world with these characters who were basically expat Americans, you know, living in, you know, a foreign city. But I think that really is always the writer's challenge, you know, whether it's a city you've been to or not, you're always looking to create an imaginary world, the boundaries of which are in your imagination. And even though you may be talking about San Francisco or Boston or Moscow, the world you're creating is your own world with its own rules within, you know, this imaginary bubble.
I love that. I actually do speak Russian, and I was convinced by it. Like every good Italian Irish girl, I speak Russian. And so
I didn't know that there were Irish, Italian, Russian speakers. So, well,
this girl,
I'm
right
glad
here,
it convinced you.
It convinced me. I've never been to Russia, but I do speak Russian because my college roommate was a Russian immigrant, and she came over during that time. And so I think what was really interesting for me, so I enjoyed the Russian that was sprinkled throughout. And it was really interesting for me to both travel in your pages to the streets of Moscow, and also to travel, you know, in, as you said, 1985, which is not what it is today. So when I get the chance to go, it won't be like this. But one of the many things that I really liked about this book was there's a a toughness about Russian culture. There's a harshness about it. It's not just the climate. When you have had to grow up in a place where there are constant food shortages or shortages of other things, I think it gives you a harshness, a hardened shell, because you have to fight for survival in some ways, and you have to fight, a lot of corruption. You got to fight for survival, even if you're not a spy. And I think you captured that really well, that hardness, that suspicion, that terseness, and that word is turned up again and again in your praise, because you did it so well. So thank you for that. Of course, the central theme of this book is a KGB agent who they're trying to exfiltrate. So he wants to leave the country because he has his own reasons, but his son is sick, he can't get medicine. Which of course is something that is very real and would have been authentic to that time. When you were reading these books about KGB or ex-KGB and moles, what was did you have some light bulb moments? Can you share those with us?
I read there were a couple of Russian spies who spied on behalf of the United States, a guy named Shemov, another named Goryetsky, and a guy named Tolokev. And each of them had different stories. But the story about the spy, the Russian KGB officer who wanted to leave but wouldn't leave without his family, was something I picked up in the autobiography of this guy Shemov. And that was a touching thing for me, because if you think about it, you're having to leave your home, you're having to leave your land of your birth, and you're having to leave your family. And if you do this with your son and wife, knowing that if you're caught, you're going to be executed and their lives will be ruined, the stakes become quite high. And so for me, that character was, as you saw in the book, he goes through a variety of personal trials. His wife is scared. They see that their house is under surveillance, and yet he manages to go ahead because he is driven. He's Russian, so it's the Soviet Union, but he is a Russian mushnik. He's not of the aristocratic class, and he himself feels the prejudice of being from somewhere, outside of Moscow. So I tried to create a life for him that is beyond the life of a spy. He has a whole world. I tried to create a three-dimensionality to him. And that's important, because the reader, if he or she feels a fullness to the character, they will empathize with the character. And that just deepens the quality of the novel, and deepens the reader's experience with the character.
You're getting thumbs up on it. People are resonating with that on Facebook. Thank you. Margaret saying exfiltration, immigration, high risk tension. Who else loves it? We all do. Paul, tell us why. What about, again, you're known as an acclaimed espionage novelist. Why do you like to write espionage novels? What's behind that?
Well, it's sort of there's a longer and a shorter answer. I'll start with the slightly longer answer. When I was looking to write my first novel, there was a family tragedy that I dealt with, which was an uncle of mine who basically was murdered in 1953, happened to work for the CIA, and was pushed out of a window, 13th floor window of the Statler Hotel in New York. And it's a famous case. The guy's name is Frank Olson. And I struggled with that novel. I tried to write it 3 times, 4 times. But the problem I had was that it was too close to me. And I wasn't able to create a distance between what I knew about the story and how I would write the story. And so it was only after I put it aside and wrote my first 2 books that I went back to it, which became the novel known as The Coldest Warrior. But what I found in this character, my uncle, was somebody who did top secret work that he couldn't talk to his wife about. And he himself couldn't share his doubts about the work with his colleagues, because to do so would be to betray the work.
Right.
So he was an insider alone who wanted to get out. And that notion of somebody wanting to get out of the secret business of spying felt like a really interesting character. And so that became the character in the first novel. And George Mueller in that novel is also in this novel, but he's older now. He's sort of accepted his fate to be a spy. He's sophisticated. He actually is towards the end of his career seeking to retire, but he's come to grips with his regrets and his moral compromises. But the start of this was, I found this character whose mind and life I could inhabit. And that sort of allowed me to say, okay, here's a character who I can explore the world with. Through his eyes in the CIA, he's not sort of the rough and tough guy who's going to run off and sort of, do good things on behalf of democracy. He's somebody who struggles with the work that he does. He has doubts about the nature of his work. And that to me is a much more interesting character. And then layering on top of that, the shorter answer is that, we're all intrigued by spies because they lie for a business. They lie for their work. And while we all lie in our lives a little bit, they do it, professionally. And they suborn friends. They do all these things that intrigue us and sort of fascinate us and also repel us. But and that's what's sort of interesting about this genre. And in some ways, it's what I always found interesting about Le Carré. He wrote spy novels that are really literary works, and he dresses up the literary work with the tropes of the spy novel. And I think that's why he's now having died, he's been, written about and eulogized as, one of the great writers in English in the second half of the 20th century. And it's because he had these wonderful stories and these wonderful characters. And what he always said about the spy novels, it's a spy novel, but it's also a love story. It's also a story about integrity and regret and betrayal. And so he took it and held up a certain class of Englishmen to the world by looking at them through the trope of a spy novel.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from the audience. We see you've had close involvement with the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation, the historian, establishing exchanges between the US and Bulgarian writers. What made that particular cause near and dear to you, Paul?
About 10 years ago, I applied for and received a grant to go to the Sozopol workshop in Sofia in Bulgaria. And Elizabeth Kostova is just a wonderful person. And so when we came back to New York, I helped her out on a variety of things and loved the notion that she's trying to bridge sort of the cultural divide between a relatively small Eastern European country and the United States. And in literature and translation, the United States is sort of a small business, even though there's wonderful literature being written overseas. And she tries to bridge that divide. And I'm part of me, half of me is Slovenian, so not too far from Bulgaria. And I became a Slovenian citizen a number of years ago because I could, and I've visited Slovenia since I was the age of 10 months old. So I have a strong connection to that part of the world, and visit there all the time. Although I don't speak any Slovenian.
Very cool. Yeah. I've never been to Slovenia or Bulgaria. I've been to the Czech Republic, which, like Bulgaria, was forced to learn Russian and now resents it. Now doesn't have to. But it's so interesting because I had a friend in college from Bulgaria, and she, of course, spoke fluent Russian and fluent Bulgarian and fluent English. And I've always wanted to go there. So that's very cool. Paul, you said it takes you 6 to 9 months to research a book. How long does it take you to write this book?
I would say it's about 6 or 7 months. I mean, my particular styles, I do all the research, then make a pretty extensive outline, which may be 60 pages long. Every chapter.
Wait, did you say 60 or 16?
60. So every chapter is outlined. I try and create the dramatic flows, the plot intricacies, and have it. And then I begin writing longhand. And I go start to finish. And the first draft is usually about 45 days. And it's very rough. And then I do another draft and another draft. And by the 6 months, I've probably done 4 handwritten drafts. And then I type it in to a computer. And that is sort of the 5th draft. And that's at that point, it's in shape enough for me to share it with a writer's group where we share each other's work. But it's just everyone's, writing style is different. In my case, I sort of know the outline of the book, and putting it on the page is all about sort of taking this world that I've inhabited in my brain and putting it on the page in an orderly fashion. But it's not that orderly, because one of the most interesting things about the first and second, third draft is surprising myself by having the characters do things that I didn't expect them to do. And it's those serendipitous moments which in some ways are the most exciting in the book, because the reader, like me, the writer, doesn't expect something to happen, and it happens. But that's the way, that's who we are as humans.
So my partner in crime, Margaret, and fellow author, fellow Mighty Blaze volunteer here, Margaret Pinard, is saying, 4 handwritten drafts. Paul is speaking to my soul and to my very tired hands. So Paul and Margaret, I actually am reading this book called Biohack Your Brain. It just came out. It's by Dr. Kristen Willemeyer, and she is a neurologist. And she writes about in her book that writing by longhand stimulates a different part of your brain than typing does, and actually is one of the most powerful things you can do to maintain your brain health and to make sure that your brain is firing on all cylinders. She recommends writing daily by longhand. If you're not a writer, just journal. Because it is so powerful and so effective to strengthen your neural pathways, to massage your brain, to exercise your brain. So Margaret and Paul are winning at life with their handwritten drafts over here. You guys are obviously creative brain wizards. So thank you for that.
Well, let me just comment. That sort of resonates for me, because I definitely feel that, here's the pen. This pen has written all my books. And that one pen has written all my books. And I do have an experience when I start writing that I can feel the thoughts go from my brain down my arm, through my fingers, into the pen and onto the page. It's almost a visceral connection between the page and my brain. And that's different than typing. The last draft, I type into the computer, and I can feel it's a different thing. It's a wonderful editing tool. It's a wonderful tool of smoothing things out and creating flow. And there's a greater speed to writing on a computer, but it does feel like I'm working in a different way with the text than if I'm using a pen. And it's, everyone has their own style that they're comfortable with, but that just happens to be the thing that I developed early when I was, starting writing.
Well, Paul, clearly you're brilliant, because the neurologists are affirming that this is one of the best and most powerful things that you can do for brain health. So I am a journaler. I don't write my books by longhand, but I'm a journaler. And I haven't been doing it every day sometimes, but now I'm recommitting. So how about you, friends who are watching on Facebook? Let us know in the comments. Do you write by longhand? Do you journal? Do you write if you're a writer, do you write your drafts? Do you write letters? Are you getting that pen to paper? Paul, I want to know what's so special about that pen.
It's a Mont Blanc. It's I like pens, and I don't like cheap pens. So I started writing this this way some time ago, and I also, whenever I sign books, I sign it with the pen. So if you get a book from me that's signed, it's signed with a pen that wrote the book.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I love that. Wait, so did you see it in the store and you were like, that's my magic pen? Or did you happen to start writing and then it just turned out that was your lucky pen?
I have several pens, but I just started writing with this one. As you can see, it's got a black base. My sweater is black. My pants are black. So there's a theme there.
There's a dark sense of
Right.
of imminent danger. So this
Right.
is you, Paul. This is you. Oh my gosh, I love that. Someone's asking, oh my, we get to see some of Sarah's journaling on Instagram. Yes, I will do that. They're saying this is so impressive that this pen has written all of your books. That's so cool. Paul, what's your without any spoilers, what's your favorite scene in this book and why?
My favorite scene is the scene between Garen and Natalia. It's at about the middle of the book. And you felt that there was a sexual, sensual tension between them. And they're together, they go up on the roof and they find themselves in bed together. And the first time I wrote that, I had them, have sex. And my wife read that and she says, you can't do that. And she said, it's just spoiling it. It's too conventional. So I went back and rewrote that and added another chapter. And in fact, the first night they are together, they choose to just enjoy being in bed together and testing the intimacy and enjoying that sort of distance. And then they do, the next day have sex, and then there is a scene over a number of days in which they sort of learn to become intimate with each other. But that scene, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. My wife, had her comments on it, and I realized, but that's sort of what you expect. Here are these two people who are cautious about themselves, both spies, basically. And the last thing you want to do if you're a spy and cautious about how much you reveal yourself to somebody is to sort of reveal your intimacies with somebody. Right. So it felt like that was the right choice for that character. And I, have to thank my wife for her guidance on that.
All right, mystery fans, you heard it here first. Paul's wife gave input on the sex scenes in this book. Now we know who to thank or who to blame. Margaret would like to know, is there anywhere that readers can order that Mont Blanc pen signed book currently? Margaret, great question. Paul, where can we get a signed copy?
Signed copy. The Mysterious Bookshop has them. They definitely have them.
So the Mysterious Bookshop, for those who don't know, is an amazing mystery-focused bookstore in Manhattan. So at a wonderful independent bookstore. And as you may know, tragically, one independent bookstore a week has gone out of business since the pandemic descended. So we got to give our indies love. So today, through our very special partnership with bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores, you can order Paul's book today. Margaret posted the link in the comments, or if you want a copy signed by Paul's magical Mont Blanc pen that has written all 4 of his books, you can get it from the Mysterious Bookshop in Manhattan. They're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They have their own website, and they will get you a signed copy, and you will know that that ink has written all of his books. Margaret is saying hooray. Well, Paul, I can't believe it, but we're out of time. I want to thank you so much. And I just want to ask you one final question. What's one thing you want people to leave your book having felt, having experienced, having learned after they read The Mercenary?
The one thing, I guess it's the way in which, the last scene is a scene in which without giving anything away, for me, it was a heart-moving scene, which takes place in Langley, Virginia. And I wanted you to, when you close the book, you should sort of feel regret and hope, and that, the book took you on a journey to a place. I've never been asked that question about this book, so I'll have to figure out a more succinct answer. But the last scene is one that I spent a lot of time with, and hopefully it moves you as it did me when I wrote it.
It certainly did. It is a powerful, very moving last scene. And I love it when I get to ask a question that no one's been asked before. So #daymade. So with that, I want to thank you, Paul Vidich. I want to thank Margaret Bernard, my partner in crime. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. So in Russian, spasibo bolshoye, that's thank you very much. И до свидания. Have a good day. Bye, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.